What's up, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of Buds, Bros, and Superheroes. So if it's your first time coming to hang out, let me quick tell you what goes on so we can all be on the same page for the episode. The name Buds, Bros, and Superheroes acts as conversation topic placeholders for what we're going to be doing today. So in the Bud section, Travelers of the Green, we're going to be talking about just a little bit of that. In the Bros section, just wanted to talk to you a little bit about collecting. I like collecting. I've been doing a ton of hunting lately. Want to see what you're collecting. And then finally in the superhero, gonna mix it up and talk about an actual physical comic book, which is cool, man. I'm not sure if we've actually done this on the show, so it's a first, and I definitely wouldn't want to do it with anybody else but you. We'll talk about the comic book, but before I bury the lead anymore of the guest host today, we're welcoming back Daniel from the Reasons I'm Broke podcast. Good friend of the show, dude. Thank you so much for always being so willing to come and hang out.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for the invite, and hello to you on the other side as well. Thank you for tuning in for another week of Buds, Bros, and Superheroes.
Yeah, it's been getting a little erratic. On your show, you just were gracious enough to have me host with you. We were talking about at the new job, just got a new promotion, and just it's been getting a little bit hard to try to figure out when and where I'll be. So scheduling got a little up and out. So for everybody on the other side who's still tuning in, when we get to you, thank you so much for your patience. And Daniel, I know you're one of those people. So thank you for always staying supportive of me and helping out and everything, dude. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. It's always a good week for me when there's a new episode of Buds, Bros, and hopefully we can provide that for everyone out there today.
You're too kind. If you are here, we're going to do what we always do of starting the show off, which is entering into the Bud section. So the Bud section is usually those. Some of my guests are also right here in the home state of Pennsylvania. If not, they can be in their own medical state of medical marijuana, their own home state of it, I meant to say. Dan, you used to are not a traveler of the green. So usually if we're on these sections, we kind of keep it high and tight, if you will.
We were just talking off the air. Yeah, I'm not a user. I would abuse it. Let's be honest, Nick. That's what would happen for me. But yeah, we were saying how last time we recorded, I think it was on this one, you were saying you've since found out that there are medical marijuana facilities here in Florida where I'm from. And that kind of jogged my memory when I traveled to Tampa this last couple of months ago with Kelly. We went to go gamble a little bit, and there were these nice brand new looking buildings in Tampa that were for medical marijuana usage. Just in my area, in the Central Florida area, Central Orlando area, there's not a lot of that I've seen. I've noticed the CBD oil stuff that's nearby, but not the full facilities. So I don't know if that's a recent thing for Florida. I kind of would hope that it would just be all over the place because Florida is kind of known for everything. So it kind of took me by surprise when you reminded me, like, that's right, there are some in Tampa.
When I quick look at a map, yes, I do literally see two in the Tampa area. A little bit more are in the center, more towards, there's a few in Orlando, it looks like, maybe a few up the Villages / Leesburg. Hopefully some of these sound familiar to you. I don't know shit about Florida now that I'm saying it. And then like the most southern one is all the way down by like Boca Raton and Fort Lauderdale. So like the other side, far down. There are some, not a lot, but some.
I'm sure they'll pop up even more as we continue on, because there's no way. I would say if you're working in the field, it's gotten progressively more accepted. I'm assuming more and more you get more customers each year too, right?
Yeah, we're growing a lot as everything goes on. And especially too, I think in recent news, like the House just recently wanted to get rid of it federally, or not get rid of it, or to make the law against it federally, get rid of that. So to make it federally legal, and it's going through the processes of getting looked at. So yeah, I think the it's getting a lot easier. What do I want to say? That the leashes have been lightened a little bit, you know? It's a mouthful.
Where there's money to be made, they will let it happen. That's for sure.
Fucking A, dude. Yeah, all off a plant that can't kill you if you consume too much, doesn't have a habit forming usually. Like, you know what I mean? There are worse things. Just let's legalize it by now.
If we got alcohol legalized, then yeah, marijuana should be. I agree.
Yeah. Because I was also looking specifically for your state. I'm actually planning to come there twice this year so far. Not for a few months. My grandparents live in Bradenton, I believe that it is. And then we're going to do Disney in November.
Oh, nice. Very cool. So you're braving Disney during the holidays. That's going to be, have you done that before?
No, not that I can remember. I think like the holidays, if you want to extend it back to October-ish, I think I was there for like Mickey's Not So Spooky Halloween, but like the holidays decor, no, I have not. We're gonna try to slip in around like I think it's around Election Day or something like that. The very beginning, the week before. What's the Thanksgiving? That's what I'm trying to say.
It's gonna be an experience for sure, man. It does get really busy during the holidays and just in the area for sure. We get a lot of snowbirds and the tourists, the Brazilians. You're gonna see a lot of Brazilians if you didn't already see a ton during Mickey's Not So Scary. So, but it will be fun. You're gonna get to see the holiday decorations. I think they put them up that early. Like as soon as Halloween ends, they put up the Christmas ones. So, if anything, just to see how Disney, at least the Magic Kingdom itself, Christmases it up, and then you can kind of see some of the exclusive shows as well that they do during that season. So, I'm really excited for you, man. I hope we can somehow meet up. I know it's your vacation. You'll have your time all set up, but I always like when other hosts and friends do come to Disney because I'm like, oh, I'm nearby. We can maybe hang out once or twice. That'd be fun.
Absolutely. No, that was already in the plan of I was going to ask you that for sure, whether it was going to be during the actual show or off mic or whatever. That would be a fuck ton of fun, man.
I'm excited. I'm really excited now.
But that is a short little bud section. I could go into what I'm smoking on, but it would just kind of turn into a Cresco ad like it normally does because I have some Haze and Haze. It's a wonderful little hybrid. I only say that just to always encourage people on the other side. If you guys are smoking too in any program and you want to leave a comment on anywhere that you can on social medias or whatever, it would be cool. That would be fun. Always feel free to do so. But we are going to close on out of that bud section super early and head into the Bros section where we're going to be talking a little bit more about hunting, but not like big animal hunting, not any animal hunting, actually toy hunting or comic hunting or collector hunting. So I can once again bring up the last time I was on your show, we talked about a Bulbasaur card collection of Pokemon and wanted to know more about that and any other thing you collect, man.
So a little recap too, in case you don't listen to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, I have a collection of every Bulbasaur art card that they've ever printed. So with Pokemon, they do an English version, Japanese, French, Spanish, all of those. So I don't go through and collect every language, but I do collect the artwork. So for example, there's a Bulbasaur card where in the North American release, it's a particular art, and then in Japan, it's a different art, even though it's the same card, same set. So I will collect those different ones. But I do have times one of each of all of those, except for one, which we talked about, was the Pokemon Snap winners card, which I think they only printed 20 of, and it's somewhere in someone's collection, and who knows how much it's worth. But that's one of the things in my collection. That's one of those where every time they print out a new Bulbasaur, they did it for Detective Pikachu, the movie. I'm like, all right, I gotta go get it now. So that's one of those things that I'm always after. And there's a couple of grails that I've been very fortunate to now fill out in my collection. Most recently, over the last year, the first appearance of Sinestro finally made its way to my collection. The first cover appearance of Sinestro was in that same collection. And then the Neil Adams recreation of a classic Detective Comics comic cover where he's up behind a mountain. You can see his big silhouette. He recreated that one with the castle and this horse coming down, this horse carriage. That one was also in my Holy Grail list. And I just got really lucky with one, knowing the owner of my comic shop. We used to work together and everything, and he asked me, hey, do you have anything you're looking for? And I gave him the number. He's like, oh, okay, I think that's in this collection. Pulled it out. Awesome. Was able to get it. So I was really fortunate this last year of in my collecting. I'm like, holy shit, I was able to fill in some gaps.
That's awesome. That's really amazing too, when you can, it's almost a dream experience of, what are you looking for? This, here it is, buy it. Thank you. Like, oh man, I mean, it kind of gave me chills. It doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. And the Sinestro one was especially, I mean, he's one of my favorite he's my favorite Green Lantern. He's my favorite Lantern. I think he is the greatest Lantern of all time. But when you go back, and I read the fucking book, I don't care. Like, I'm like, yeah, man, there's some guys that will put on gloves and all that. But I've worked with comics for almost 10 years professionally. So I can handle a book without it getting damaged or anything. So I read the book, and it's just funny how different the character was back then compared to how he is now. He was a straight up villain with the purple and black costume, long head, and then you read the Jeff Johns run, and he's more kind of, when Ethan Van Sciver was drawing him, he drew him almost like Hitler, but then as he became a little as the story progressed, and he kind of it reveals that he did all of this for the Green Lantern Corps. They kind of handsomed him up a little bit, kind of like Snape in the Harry Potter movies. Like, let's make him look less evil. Let's make him look a little more sympathetic. So you go back to that first appearance, and it's like, yep, this is mustache twirling villain era type of thing with the comics. So it's just cool to revisit.
I recently was just at my shop when I picked up the book that we'll talk about a little bit later, and I got myself a yellow lantern, one of those all one piece, one color plastic ones, but still a yellow lantern ring, because I too have always found Sinestro really interesting to read. So what is that first appearance then?
It is Green Lantern. I'm going to have to look that one up. I don't have the numbers memorized.
All right, let me ask in a different way then. I'm sorry. How old is it? Like, I was curious about when did he first pop up, at least?
So that one, the first appearance of Sinestro, we got the first cover appearance was in a 10-cent issue of Green Lantern number 9, and that was 1961, wow. So it was in the 60s.
Okay. But
and
still
that first
pretty
appearance,
early. Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, it was right in that era. And the plastic ring that you bought from your comic shop, did they have a ton left still? Because I remember the last time they reprinted them, like DC was like, this is it, the last couple bags, and I think it was during the Blackest Night era.
Yeah, there was a few there.
That's maybe good, man.
Yeah, green ones, and there was a few Legionnaire ones as well.
Oh yeah, those we still have tons of at the shop I used to work at. But that's good that you got the lantern. If you're looking to collect more, make sure to nab them now, because I don't think Discovery is going to be printing up no plastic lantern rings anytime soon. So as soon as they're out, they're out.
Good call. I will go back there to pick up number 2 of what we're going to talk about. And yes, I will do that. It's funny because I already had a Legionnaire one, and I was like, oh, look at these. And I showed it to my wife, who I was like, look, we have one of these. For reasons unknown, I had to show her. But the guy goes, it doesn't actually give you flight. And I was like, how many people understand that joke? And we all do here. Right. Like, I fucking love that shit so much.
Yeah, customers would ask, like, will it make you fly? And well, all right, yeah.
We all know that we know, yeah. It's somewhat nerdy, but somewhat fun, too, because it's just, in your life, did you really ever think that anybody would take the time to mass produce a Legionnaire ring like that?
No. No, but there's a lot of weird shit in movies and TV shows that it's like, I never thought we'd get that today. So now it's like anything's possible.
Fuck, I don't want to spoil something, but I kind of want to ask you, too. Can I risk it? All right. Yeah, do you watch Young Justice?
Kelly and I kept up with it up until the last couple seasons, and then as soon as it hit HBO Max, we tried to give that latest season a shot, and we didn't stick with it. And Green Lantern the animated series was more my thing, and Young Justice was more her thing. So as soon as she checked out, I was like, all right, even easier for me.
Gotcha. All right. I don't want to give too many spoilers just in case you go around, but obviously you could tell from where we were to where we are, the Legionnaire shows up, and I was like, fucking A, dude. Like, this is, in my opinion, a great, almost homage to the animated series itself, of like, they show up all the time, but only once did they get their own TV series. And I don't think anybody watched that shit.
No, and DC still, every now and again, they'll keep trying to make a Legionnaires miniseries happen, or an ongoing series. Brian Michael Bendis recently tried it about 2 years ago. And even back then, when I was ordering these books, I'm like, no one's going to want these. It's kind of like when Marvel tries the family of the Fantastic Four, like the kids, and it's like, no one's ever going to want to read these guys. Like, stop trying. I know the comic creators and the artists, they're big fans of it. It's nostalgia for them, but it's like, make another Batman book instead. That shit's going to sell. Let the internet complain, but that shit's going to move.
Yes, correct. They'll complain, but they're still going to buy it.
Oh, of course.
So we talked about the Bulbasaur cards. Do you have any other Pokemon cards, or has everything else kind of fallen to the wayside as Bulbasaur takes up all the collection?
I do have other cards, but I don't collect them as in theme. I was going for the Mimikyu cards when they first came out. That was a newer Pokemon. Are you familiar with Mimikyu?
Through you, and only through you guys. Yes, you taught me what it was, and it was the saddest little story. And after I heard it on your podcast, I looked it up and have since told anybody else if I ever see it. I'm just like, look at this and listen to the sad story. He dresses up to be one of them, but he's not. Like, it's fucked up.
Yeah, that's basically it right there. To anyone unfamiliar, wants to be a Pikachu, dresses up poorly at its best to be a Pikachu, and wears it on its head, and no one has ever seen what the actual Pokemon looks like. It's like a ghost type. So I fell out of collecting those because they started coming out in probably there's more Mimikyus now than Bulbasaur, crazy enough. But it is a really cool Pokemon. So that was one that I almost kept up with. But when I open up packs, I usually buy things as far as Pokemon for like the tins, for example. That was the recent one. I bought an Electivire tin that I can hopefully keep some of the graded cards that I'm going to have coming in about a month or two from Tree Frog grading, and that'll be a good way to store them. But otherwise, if I open up boosters and anytime it's a Kingler card, I will definitely keep it. Or if the artwork just looks nice, I will keep it. I'll share it on Twitter. And some collectors have pointed that out, like, man, it's cool that you just share cool looking cards. And I'm like, that's as casual as can be. Like, I just find the card that looks neat and I will share it. And that's about the extent of it. But there's some collectors out there that will try to find the most expensive card in every set and just, hoard them and collect them. And that's great. Everyone's got their thing. There's something about finding the rarest one that gets people really excited, and good for them. But for me, it's not that serious anymore, I guess, is what it would be. It's just with Bulbasaur, for sure, 100%.
Nice. And then really quick as well, because I found this so fascinating when I was on your show, you talked about the tree frog. I wanted, again, just let you kind of drop that and talk about that for anybody who hasn't heard on this side of it's a really cool gig you got going on.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm submitting to them for the first time next week when other host of the show, Bobby, sends over his cards. We're going to send them off, but basically you send them to a company. They encapsulate them kind of like CGC for comic books. They'll put a grade on it. And what's neat about Tree Frog grading is most companies will send it back to you. Here's your Detective Comics, and it's a graded 9. And you're like, oh shit. Why is it a 9? Why is it? I thought it would be an 8. Why? I thought it'd be a 10. But Tree Frog grading, they'll actually put a subgrade underneath. Like, here's the centering, it's a 8.0. Here's the surface, it's a 10.0. Here's, and it'll basically give you a breakdown of, at that average, here's why we gave it a 9 or a 10. So that's the neat thing about it. That's something that they do that no other card company does. And the only reason I came across them was through Instagram. And I think it was one of the suggested posts, the algorithm was working, doing its magic, and I'm like, oh fuck, I love frogs. It's my favorite animal in the world. Bulbasaur is a frog. It's another connection there. And so I checked them out, and the grading looks great as far as the presentation of it. Makes your cards look neat, and they're waterproof, so you can put them underwater. If you have a flood and your collection all goes to shit, well, your Tree Frog grading cards are going to be fine. But I contacted them, and they sent over a little affiliate link, so 5% off if you use BROKE as the discount code, and there you go. Gives us a little kickback, gives you a 5% off, and it's a good way to protect your TCG cards. So if you have a Pokemon card, a Yu-Gi-Oh card, baseball that you just want to protect, even just for display from UV lighting and all that, it's a good way to use it.
Yeah, I really found I love that. That's really very cool, especially at the very end there. You got me with the flooding, because nothing can ruin cards or comics, in my opinion, more than moisture, dude. It's just an automatic fucking killer, because nobody wants to buy a mildewy book or card or anything like that.
Especially here in Florida, I would see collections all the time coming in. It would break my heart when I'd see a comic that is just water damaged just from being in storage somewhere. And it's Florida. It's going to get hot. It's going to get humid. It rains all the time. It's like the worst state for collecting comic books, really. So you really have to be careful with your books down here. And I'd get a comic and I'm like, man, if it didn't have this water spot here or this little bit of water damage, this could have been hundreds more. So it really sucks. So it's huge for collectors down here, especially, to make sure to get Mylar or to get them slabbed is what they call it. So get your comics graded, even if you don't care about the grade. Like my first appearance of Ra's al Ghul came back a 5.0. I don't give a shit, because I'm like, that's my favorite Batman villain. I want to protect this book. I never want anything to happen to it. I don't intend on ever selling it. So I just want it in protected condition, because I don't know when I'll find something like that again.
All right, I just wanted to look it up. So the first Ra's al Ghul, yes, it is the one that I'm thinking about. Oh, what a bitchin' cover, dude. It's the one that's all green with him in the back and his hand reaching out, right?
Yeah, and Robin's getting shot.
Yep. Oh, man, I'm looking at it now just to bring it up. And, ooh, a little jelly, sir. Very, very, very cool that you own that. Very great cover there by Neil Adams again, right?
Yeah, Neil Adams, and written by Denny O'Neil.
Oh, those sons of bitches. Those guys.
Some of the best duo in comics right there.
Isn't it?
People need to give them way more credit for Batman, because they brought Batman out of that 60s era type of goofiness, and the Joker even got a huge reinvention thanks to those two guys. Really made him more sinister and more about murder rather than literally just playing practical jokes on him.
Yeah, I always think about that card where Joker's, or the cover where Batman's on a card that the Joker's cover on the cover. Jeez, I'm so tongue-tied. You know what I'm saying? And watch out, Gotham, Joker's back in town.
Classic cover, yeah.
It is. He is great. He's one of a kind. That's why I even went, when I got the tattoo, I got a cover of him from Green Arrow, Green Lantern, the hard traveling heroes on my forearm, and like, it's pretty iconic. And I think that he's pretty iconic, so I'm gonna maybe add something to the back there as well.
Oh, nice, man. You got to reshare it on Instagram again. I saw it, but you got to put it up again and share that every couple months because it's Neil Adams artwork on your arm. And who better than Green Arrow, especially? He was huge with Green Arrow. He and Denny O'Neil also. So good choice on the cover because, again, that team really did a lot for many of the characters we both love.
Yeah, I went for a second sitting since the first photo, and I'm going for one actually in just a few days, probably on the day this drops on Saturday, and I'll post another one then because I'm hoping by this last one it'll be done. But quite frankly, I just don't sit well, dude. I don't enjoy it. So sometimes I guess he could just tell. He's like, you know what? I can kind of finish what we're doing, and we can go for another one. I'm like, yes, please, yes, thank you. All right, cool, thanks, whatever you can, thank you, because I fucking hate that shit.
How many hours would you say you're sitting down at a time so far?
At the very least 3. 3 okay. Was the very least. And then, he's like, it's just not everybody's day. Because also we had gone with my wife that day. She got a full tattoo. So I was in the shop for like 6 hours before that. So I was already antsy and sitting down a lot. And we got all that artwork that you saw, all the line work done. And he was like, well, how you feeling? I was like, dude, it's late and I've been here forever. I just kind of want to go home. So then we went on to this next one. We got a shit ton of green done. And now hopefully we'll just finish out the explosion and like the ray in the center there a little bit.
Nice. And does he let you pay per session, or did you already pay for everything and then you're just going in for the sessions?
He lets me pay per session. So every time I go in there, I'm just allowed to do it a little bit at a time, which also helps,
Yes.
If I could sit for an 8-hour tattoo, I don't know if I could pay for an 8-hour tattoo. So it's easier to pay for like a 3-hour tattoo and then a 4.5 and then a 2, you know what I mean? It's just works out better that way.
Yeah, I'd say you're doing it the right way because maybe your artist can do it, but I know for mine, after hour 3 or 4, he was like, I'm tired, man. I gotta stop. And I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. So some artists, you're better off. Okay, let's get you fresh again and get their clean lines and get their fresh coloring. So everyone kind of wins as long as everyone's okay. And it does get tough and you kind of numb out, right? Your arm just numbs out, but then it gets uncomfortable. It's not painful. It's just really uncomfortable to just sit there. So I get that, man. Everyone gets tired.
Yeah, in my opinion, I always think that it's going to be more of a pricking sensation, but it's more of a hot searing sensation, and that's just not that's where I kind of tap where when it starts getting into that, that's where I'm like, all right, it feels like a fucking brand, and I just don't want this. That's
the other thing. I guess your skin just gets so punished or raw or whatever to where it's like it does feel like a bad sunburn, like almost as if someone is writing on your skin by pressing down with a pen, but they're pushing down really hard. So it's to anyone that hasn't gotten a tattoo ever, I used to think that, like you said, it was like almost like a needle type of pain, or when I'd get a shot or a vaccine, because it literally is a bunch of needles going into your arm over and over again. But it's really more of a dragging sunburn type of pain, which is way more bearable for me than one shot. But it does get, after a couple hours, it's like, all right, this is enough.
Exactly. But I am collecting those as I'm collecting other things, kind of to segue back really quick, because I wanted to ask you a question, especially in Florida, because I feel like there's a lot more opportunity with the weather of, are you a garage sailor? Will you go to like different picks or even flea markets to find your stuff?
I would love to be, but for the last, I can't even remember how long, since I've worked in retail for many, many years, GameStop, the comic shop, I was always required to work on Saturdays and Sundays, which is prime flea market garage sale time. I haven't not worked the weekend unless it was a vacation otherwise. So I couldn't get out to those garage sales. I'd always drive by them and be like, oh man, there's a garage sale going on today. When I was on vacation in Illinois, my buddy took me to a flea market, and it was really neat to see some of the retro games that people were selling, some of the bootleg movies. I know you've talked about that on here before too, where you can find some really neat stuff. I would love to go more to flea markets for that. And I think if I ever get the regular during the week job, then I would be more willing to go to flea markets for sure, because I'm sure I could have found so much treasure by now, either Pokemon or comic books. And it's one of those things too, where because I've worked in the comic industry, collectible industry, I feel like I'd have to be honest about something I'd find. Like, let's say they had a comic that I know is worth more and they have it for $5. I've heard the story so many times of these guys coming in like, you know what this guy had? He had this. He didn't know what he had. And I bought that all up for $4. And I'd kind of be like, so you're admitting to me you stole. Like this, I'd kind of be as the guy on the other side as a seller, like, come on, dude, don't tell me this. So yeah. I feel like I'd tell the guy, like, look, this is worth this much. Can I pay you that? And then it's up to them, right? But I know I'd find all kinds of stuff that I'd be willing to buy, and I definitely want to get into that. It's a dangerous game, though. How about you? What kind of experience do you have on it?
I just really quick, you made me think before I forget. If you or anybody wants to get into garage sailing virtually, I found a fucking YouTube channel that I've become strangely addicted to. It's called Froggy Flips, where he just goes around. I think he's Midwest, West, yes. I don't know. I want to say like Indiana, could be Iowa. I don't know. Anyway, but he just goes around and just has me thinking about it. So it's got me going a little bit more. And I just had recently found something fucking really nice at the flea market. An original 1993 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Thunder Megazord. So the first time that they switched Zords from their original, the ones that everybody kind of thinks of when they called out their names, the Mastodon, Pterodactyl, Saber-tooth Tiger, Triceratops, Tyrannosaurus, and they went to the new ones, like that's this one. And the place that I got it at is a giant flea market that is inside, like, I think it used to be a Kmart. It used to be a something. So all the infrastructure of a giant warehouse is kind of there in a sense, but like they just kind of split it up into, I couldn't even tell you how many booths, dude. Like I really couldn't. It is a fucking maze in there. However, for whatever reason, it's stopping on the 22nd of this month. So basically, more or less, he just needed to get rid of it, had it for a certain price last week. And I said, how about this? And he was like, no, I can't budge. And I was like, all right. And just walked around and I came back in before I was leaving. And I was like, dude, are you sure you can't? And he said, no. It's like, all right. So now I'm just kind of going through Facebook Marketplace and I see it on there for $10 cheaper than what he'd said in his actual booth, right?
Wow. Okay.
So then I was like, all right, maybe I can get it for even lower. So I tried, and eventually, long story short, I did get my price. I went back, picked it up, and he said, yeah, that's great. Sells it to me, and he says, listen, I've got these too, and he puts out 3 other things, and they are the Shogun Zords. So now, if you remember, if you fuck with Power Rangers, the show, they had these ones, and then these eventually go to the Ninja Zords, the ones in the movie. Or the ape and the wolf and shit like that. And then they go one more, where they are the Shogun Zords. And he had 3 out of 5 of those. And he was just like, yeah, I just kind of got to get rid of this. Are you interested in these? He's like, throw me out some. And I was like, 20. And he says, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So I just left there kind of bouncing, just like, all right, this is the best day. That was probably the one, you know? That we always remembered. I'll always from now on think about, was it as good as that one time at Sugarman's? And it'll probably never get this good again.
No, of course not. But that's a great. I'm looking at the Thunder Zord now. It's exactly what I remember as a kid. Those Zords were awesome. The dragon and the feet basically was what they were. The blue and the yellow Ranger. So it was all complete. I'm assuming then, if he was kind of not willing to budge.
Almost one piece. And to be honest, I'm really surprised. So that red Ranger, the dragon could become a sentient walking person, which had a staff, which is one of the hardest things to have it. has the sword, has its sheath. The only thing that it's missing is that the Firebird has a tail that is not here.
Gotcha.
But I mean, out of all this shit from 1993, it's almost 30 years old.
Right.
It's not bad.
Yeah, that it kind of stayed together for the most part.
Now, I might be missing one other thing. I got to check somebody else's because the head just seems way too unstable. I understand it's a little bit older and maybe joints got moved here or there. You know what I mean? And it's a little like some arms you could his right arm you could put up. The left one just kind of always sags no matter how much weight is in it. It can't really go a full 90 degree. You know what I mean? But there's something seems wrong with the head. I gotta look a little bit more into it.
So do you have them all displayed now, or still kind of finding its proper worship spot?
A little bit of both. They're literally just literally right in front of me right now. They're in the middle of our living room. My wife is forced to give up this table again because I brought down. I don't have the original OG one in its original packaging or even the legacy. So they just got bought by Hasbro, and Hasbro put out a 5-piece set for the original Dino Megazord.
Okay.
I have that, and it's considerably smaller, but I still have it just next to it because that is the one that it morphed into. So in a sense, that episode where the Zords are moving and they get zapped by the lightning to become the new ones, that's what I had in my head. I had them next to each other to be like, look at that shit. That's a progression.
Now let me ask you another one. Is the Dragon Zord in your collection, or is that on your list?
On the list, yeah. The Green Ranger's original Zord, the Dragon Zord it's hard. That one's really hard to find for reasonable. Because even reasonable, I don't need them to be pristine. I don't need the box. It would be a plus. I don't really need it, especially for what I want. Now, my biggest trepidation in finding it is if they do make it for the new Hasbro Dino Zord that I was talking about, it would fit that when it goes to Super Megazord. But I don't know. That's just a really strange, nerdy complaint.
Well, that was the other question too, is would you care if it was a reprinting, like you said, a legacy one or an older one? Because I've seen it in previews over the years where they'll, I guess, renew the license or whatever, and they'll redo a Dragon Zord, and I've always been like, oh man, I kind of want to get it, but it's over $200, and I would never know, never really pull the trigger on it. But would you personally care if it was a reprint or a recreation of the Dragon Zord?
Not at all. No. Okay. Like I said, for just these new ones, some people in the collector sphere, from what I heard, are like, no, I can't do it. Look at the proportions. They're all weird. But me, I just remember being 6 and just wanting it so bad. And now I could take all 5, take them apart, look at them, put them back together, look at them. It does everything I need for that sense. The collector just needs to be able to touch it. So that's why, too, I'm a really out of the box kind of guy with that, because I want to take them apart and put them back together. Just because, especially too with this Thunder one, didn't have it. So all these clicking into places and stuff, it's for the first time. It's cool.
That's good, man. I hope you can get one day.
Thanks, brother. Other than that, comic collecting, I wanted to share with you. I did pick up a Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Death of Supergirl. I want to talk to you about that. It's one of my favorite covers.
Yeah, the George Perez one. So you got that iconic cover in your collection?
I did, yeah. I was just going through boxes and it was great. So I knew that I was going in for the two, because of dual covers, for the one comic that we're about to talk about. But also I ended up going through a long box and I found the one that I just talked about, this is it, double-sized shocker, Crisis on Infinite Earths. October 85, man. Mm-hmm. Originally $1.25. Found it for $12, which I thought was super duper reasonable.
Yeah, that's not a bad price on it, especially now that unfortunately, George Perez we're looking at a few months out before he unfortunately passes, but people are looking to get those comics in their collection because they know that they're going to get harder to find. Anything that's by a creator that's recently passed, you just don't find those books anymore. So for $12, and it's an iconic cover, it's something that I think will go down as one of the most memorable moments in comic history, the death of Supergirl. And it kind of started this tradition of any crisis, there will be a major death. We saw it in Final Crisis with the Batman. And now with Supergirl in the 80s, that's a good cover to have. Have you seen the pictures where George recreates that cover where he's getting picked up by a cosplayer Superman?
No, I haven't.
You got to look those up. They're good.
Okay. I'm grinning ear to ear at the prospect, though. That sounds fun as fuck.
It's a good cover to have, man. I'm glad it's in your collection. It's a classic for sure. It's going to be another one that I think in 20 years, I know the 80s and 90s comics were highly overprinted, but it's getting to that. We're starting to get to that point where now collectors are starting to look for those, and they're not letting them go. You'll see them in collections, sure, but not as often.
The other one I got is a Dynamite proudly presents a Yoga Hosers with Colleen's Collide. It's so funny, on the sticker that the person put on the sleeve, it says based on the Kevin Smith movie. Because I don't think people had heard about it. Not very many people have heard about it. If they had, they hadn't seen it. And especially they didn't want this one. It's only $4, dude. And I felt like a fucking king. I felt like I was robbing the place for $4 because I know I can get it via the stash sent to me. But, all that price then goes up. So for $4, I was like, fuck yeah.
And they were probably happy to get rid of it. I don't mean that in a mean way, but the Kevin Smith comics, for some reason, I had a really hard time moving. It's just he has comic collectors and they like that stuff, but it's few and far between as far as the Kevin Smith books. And I have that same one. I know exactly what you're talking about. I pre-ordered it in previews because I was going to watch the movie, and I did. And I wanted the tie-in comic. You got to get it. We're collectors. We have to.
I love that. Yeah, maybe that's where we can even finish out this awesome Bud section of just that. That spirit is really just something that's nice to know kindred. And that's why sometimes when we meet others and we get talking of just like, I understand that, especially DVDs is the last thing that I really hardcore collect. I don't need the skins. I don't need that. They're all in a binder. But sometimes I'll pick one up or I'll scour through just boxes upon boxes and find one. And my wife will go, oh, wow, is that one you needed? Or is that like a good one? And I go, no, it's not good, but I needed it. It's got to go in the collection. You know what I mean? Like I've started something. I need to see it through. And in a sense, knowing it'll never end is kind of the fun part. There'll always be that hunt.
What was the latest one that you added to your binder?
I think it was like The Hangover 2.
All right.
And my wife's like, really? And I was like, yeah, I have the first one. The third one I just picked up because, again, it was $1. So now the hunt was to find 2. I had to find number 2 because it just made no sense that it wasn't in there.
No.
And bothered me in a strange way of like not enough to drive me insane, but just flipping through every now and then I'd get to H and go, God damn it. Still gonna find this one. Miss Congeniality too. That's another one. I don't want it in there, but I love the first one. The first one's in there. The second one I found for $1. Fuck yeah. That flea market was the best find, and now I'm so sad it's gonna be gone.
It begs the question, as you and I are both big Snyderverse fans, is Justice League in your collection? Is that one that you don't want it there, but it has to be there because it's another DC movie?
Absolutely. For that exact reason. No, it's there for that exact reason.
All right. Well, that answers. And you're not the only one either. There's a lot of people in the Snyderverse movement that have that in their collection. And then when they bought the Snyder Cut, they're like, all right. And then they replaced it or whatever. They did funny things with it just to trigger people. But that's cool. So you're hardcore about it.
It's funny, like just to trigger people or to actually show my true allegiance, I should put like a warning, do not use, or for educational purposes only. Because I do think if I ever taught a film class or something like that, that would be lesson number 1 of be like, all right, we're going to sit down and watch 4 hours of awesome. And then we're going to see how somebody could fuck it up all in one foul swoop.
Here's
like,
how not to make it. It could
be used. It does have purpose somewhere.
That's very true. That is true. You can absolutely study it. There's a lot to study there.
But that's in there. And then like on the other side too of like Howard the Duck.
Right. That's true. That's true.
I don't love it. I see its purpose. I saw why it was made. I love, the oh man, her name just flew right out of my head. Leah Thompson. I was about to say Leah Remini, and I was like, no, that's not her. But anyway, I don't like that movie particularly, but it's when I have a superhero binder full of superhero movies, like in that sense, or even comic book movies, I guess I should say, it's got to be there. It has to, especially for $1.
Well, these days you're probably working overtime because everything's getting a movie, everything's coming out on DVD, more DC, more Marvel movies than ever. Your binder's going to fill up if it hasn't already.
It is, yes. In fact, and this will make nobody but you may be happier. I have, in fact, switched so DC has its own binder.
It has to, man.
DC stuff, yes. So Batman, the animated series, Young Justice, Lois and Clark is in there. I have a few seasons of that. I have a few seasons of the original Flash. All the animated movies that have come out since like Doomsday, pretty much up until Wonder Woman World War II. So I just missed the Injustice. I think there was one. I've recently slagged on that, so a few of those have gone unchecked. But for the most part, DC has its own binder of pretty much complete. Because after I got the HBO Max, it's like shit. Like I've seen it. I don't have the need to add it until I find it at a Target or something like that. Like for newer movies like that, $5, $7, I'll be like, all right, then I'll put the disc in just to feel complete.
And if anything, just for the sanity of your we talked about that too, alphabetizing everything, needing to move every A to Z of DC and Marvel. Fuck that. Just separate them, separate binders, less movies to move. Even though it's still a lot of movies, less movies.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that really helps. Always interested in what other people are collecting. If you want to put in any pictures and then tag us collecting, I find it fascinating. I love knowing what other people do because I love the passion. You know, the thing that just took up so much time about talking is just the pure passion of, oh man, I hope I find it, and then finding it and having that and then going, what's next almost. It's a great time. Would love to see any of that. Always looking for tags or shout outs on the internet. But with that, guys, we are going to close on out of this Bud section and open up into the superhero section where this whole time I haven't said it. I can't believe I didn't. But we're going to be talking about a comic book. That comic book is Godzilla vs. the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That's right. More Power Ranger talk for everyone.
Run! It's Godzilla!
So we had actually talked about this the last time I was on your show, and you're like, did you pick it up? And unfortunately, I hadn't. I got really scared, and I went and bought it like the next day. Shout out to Comics on the Green. I texted them via Facebook Messenger that night. They got back to me at like 2:30 in the morning. They're like, yeah, we have it. And I was like, wow, thank you. They hold
Good.
it. And they did, yeah. 2:30 in the morning. You believe that shit?
That I do believe that. That sounds like someone who has a stronger will than I do, because I had to set that limit when I used to work at the shop of I can't be answering these emails at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. I used to just answer them as soon as I got them. Like, I'm like, oh, let me just take care of it. Let me take care of it. And eventually I had to be like, all right, when I'm working, I will answer emails, because otherwise I'm at home working all the time. So it sounds like it's the owner, if I had to guess, is who answered you.
Almost positive, yeah. You're really, really nice guy. Set out by Boom Studios and IDW, or is that the same? I'm a little ignorant when it comes to that.
Two different publishers, yeah.
Right,
Teamed
that's
up.
awesome. And I am looking at, I literally have the books in front of me. Do you still go, did you buy these for collection or just for reading?
Both. I did get the main cover, and that's the one I'm reading. Right now, I discovered today, actually, that IDW has an exclusive Godzilla versus the Megazord variant up on their website for, I think, $20, $25, and you can only get it online. So that one I'm collecting, as far as like, all right, and the cool cover. But I'm not getting every single cover. It's just, there's too many. It's expensive. I'm not making as much money as I used to. So there are some that I'm definitely collecting and reading, and that one was one of them. And you can see it in the back of the first issue. If you go to the back, you can see all the different covers, and some of those are exclusives. The one I'm talking about is where it's a close-up of Godzilla's face and the Megazord, and they're just beating the hell out of each other.
Oh, balls, dude. That makes me want it, because I'm going to need it, because it's really awesome as I look at the back here. Oh, that's so good.
I'm going to have to send you the link right
Please.
After this, yeah.
Oh, please, in fact, do. My wife's probably rolling her eyes. She's asleep and still probably rolling her eyes. But I did go and I found the both, I guess maybe not even both. So you're saying the ones in the back, they released all of them.
That's what
Is
it's
that how
looking
that
like,
works?
yeah. Because I thought it was just pin art. And then I'm like, well, why would they just do pin art when it looks this good? They should do them as variants. So it sounds like at least a few of them that I've discovered, I'm like, okay, that's where they're selling that one, are exclusive to retailers or online.
Gotcha. So if you look at the very back there, I have the covers. The first one done by art by Freddie Williams II, with the colors done by Andrew Dalhouse, which is awesome. Very, very good looking. Now, I can't tell, does Godzilla have pupils, or are those the bottom of its eyes in this? Is it looking way down, or is it looking a little cross-eyed? It's a little strange to me. What do you think?
I'm thinking the pupils, just because Freddie Williams did draw the pupils in the interiors. So I don't see why he would leave it out on the covers. Every artist kind of has that style, and they tend to not stray from it.
Gotcha. So the entire thing was done by Freddie Williams with that, and I see what you're saying now.
Mhm.
This is just one of the covers that I have, and then the other one is by, how would you, oh, so you don't have it with you. Sorry. EJSU? EJ Sue? I don't know. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but it's the one with Dragon Zord and Godzilla staring at each other. We have Rita, Goldar, and Green
That'd be cool.
Ranger on the front there. Oh, wow. Think of that fucking emblem, though. Think if he got a power ring.
Yes, he has
We're going to have to ask my friend who was on here last time, Ryan, to draw that up for me, because that would be freaking bitching.
That would
After
be, yeah.
that, yeah, right? Oh, man. After that, I see another one by Freddie Williams II, the one that you were talking about by Alex Sanchez. Just absolutely freaking awesome. So cool. Now that I know that they made other ones, maybe I'll try, because it's funny. They were like, when the comic book guy, if you will, when I set it up, he's like, do you want to set up a subscription for these? Like, do you want me to set aside them? And I was like, yes. He's like, do you want both covers? And I looked at my wife and I was like, I'm sorry. Yes, I do.
You've committed. You got to do it.
Just because, again, if you hadn't been able to tell you or anybody, the Power Ranger aspect is really what drew me to these books. Whereas, how do you go with the Power Rangers and Godzilla? Which one would you say you're a bigger fan base of?
I would say Godzilla only because there's some guys that I know, some friends that still follow the current Rangers seasons. They're still all about it. They watch the Japanese versions as well, and they're really hardcore about it. But so I'm like, I'm not anywhere near that. I got out near Turbo, I guess, maybe a little bit afterward, just because my brother still watched it, my little brother, so I'd catch a little bit of it here and there. So the ones I'm most familiar with are the first generation of them, the originals, which is what they used for this comic, which of course was smart of them, because the people buying these comics are going to be people our age who grew up on Power Rangers. So Godzilla, I've seen, I believe, every movie except for Shin Godzilla, which came out a couple of years ago. So I'm pretty much caught up. And then the Netflix Godzilla trilogy, oh my God, those are my favorite Godzilla films. I will rewatch those from now until the end of time. It's just really good stuff. So my answer is Godzilla.
All right, so you can actually help me as we go through this, because there was one part in which I was a little, I don't know what's happening. I'm having fun, but I don't know what's happening. So again, kind of a first of, I was going to kind of go through it, almost read it with you. Maybe not like the words, but we'll go through the story really quick.
Yeah.
Is that cool?
Sounds good.
We open up with Tommy getting involved with Zordon, the old good, come on in, Zordon, or come in through the telecommunicator. And what I wanted to bring up here is I really like the style of how they did it. The first box has Zordon floating as his head. He's not actually there floating as a hologram, which is the voice, but rather than having like a floating voice box, they drew Zordon in. This is a good idea. I like that.
Yeah, that's something they didn't do from what I remember, and you just heard him when you watched the show, and I haven't even seen that in the comic book. So that's a artistic thing by Freddie Williams. I didn't see it as he's literally there. I think it's definitely there for the readers to like, okay, I see who he's talking to. I get it. All right, cool. So that was kind of a really neat way to do it. And Freddie Williams, he's an incredible artist. So let the guy do what he wants. Is what I say. So I'm like, yeah, cool. Have a giant Zordon head next to him. I don't care.
He really is, if I didn't already shout him out. Also, the Andrew Dalhouse for the colors, letters, and design by Johanna Natalie. The editor was Tom Walsh, associate editor Jasmine Joyner. Give everybody their due really quick. Sorry. Really well put together book. I love this page. I love the giant introduction to Rita. She doesn't get a full splash page, but she gets 66% of the page, and like the dead bodies down at front. Like she's into some wicked wild shit right now, guys, and she's doing it in this evil kind of old looking castle.
And I've never seen her like straight up murder anyone, right? Like
No.
Obviously they kept that out of the kids show, but here it's like, all right, she killed those protectors.
Oh yeah, people are hardcore dead around here, and I just love too. I love it. Makes me sound like a freaking killer, but it's just really good composition of these two bodies right down at the very bottom. But they are the closest thing to us, the forest foreground. So it just really leads this tone of, as you follow them from the bottom, you lead up into her, where her staff then points you down to Goldar, where she's got some shit going down. Like just compositionally, you can really tell that. Again, Freddie knows what the fuck he's doing. It's a beautiful page. And then the colors on top of that, where that mystic swirl is coming off and being on top of everything without really overpowering it. Like, this is shit that I don't want to say dreamed of, but like we're talking about It's not for babies. It's not for kids. It's more grown up, and someone's taking this shit super serious, and I love that.
And that's, I think, why fans like us enjoy this, where they are taking it, they're respecting the material. They're not just making the Power Rangers and Godzilla fight. Like, here it is. Like, they're actually taking their time they know their shit. They know what they're talking about. They know what the characters can do, why Tommy would be by himself. All of that stuff just fits. You as a fan are reading this like, okay, yep, no, that fits. That's what he would do and all that. It fits really well. You can tell that they were fans of all of these things.
Yeah, because it's funny when you go back and you watch the show and you think about why Tommy was split, as I was just talking about, like the Thunder Zords and everything. So when they got the Thunder Zords, Tommy was still the Green Ranger, and the Thunder Zords and the Dragon Zord never teamed up together because they were two different shows. But when he switched to white and he got his White Tiger Zord, they did. But what that kind of let happen was the fact of like Tommy had to have something to do. So some of the times they'd be like, all right, you go get these guys, I'll go over here, just so they can cut footage easier. So yes, you're 100% correct when I'm like, why aren't all the Power Rangers doing something? It makes sense that Tommy's just on a solo mission on his own, just doing something, because it could be at a time where they weren't cutting footage of the same seasons together, you know?
Yeah. Now, is that temple that Rita, is that a reference to Power Rangers lore as far as like that medallion or whatever she finds, the multiverse power thing that powers up her staff, or is that original to this comic?
As far as I know, it would be original to the comic.
Gotcha.
It doesn't say anything about like the multi-grid or the morphing grid or anything like that, which would kind of give a nod to things I know, because I'm not quite at the level of what you were saying some of your friends are, either of in terms of going all the way up until current seasons or even then getting on top of the Super Sentai. I like to learn lore about it. I watch YouTube. I like to read the comics. I watch the old episodes and stuff. So it could be is what I'm trying to say. If anybody's on the other end, like, no, he doesn't remember episode blah, blah, blah of this season. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm sorry. But you can teach me about it. Like I said, I'm down to learn. But as far as I know, no. The multiversal focus, the Power Rangers, no, I don't know anything about that.
Only reason I asked is they had like this close-up shot of that stone or whatever. So I'm like, oh, I wonder if it looked like Earth a little bit. So I had to ask just to see. So could be, I guess, or maybe they'll explain it in future issues. There's 4 more to go.
I love that. And do you also know the release schedule off the top of your head?
It should be monthly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Tommy's like, I'm not going to let bad shit happen. And the first time we see him literally kicking ass. And again, back to that adult theme, he's kicking Goldar right in the chin and like blood splurting. And it's like, hell yeah, dude. We never saw that shit in the show either. It was usually Sparks or something like that. Scorpina's here, which is another weird deep cut that I really like of bringing back. Like, I understand that reference. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I could almost hear the Go Green Ranger Go music right when he entered in.
Nick Carter, dude. So not like the Nick Carter of Backstreet Boys fame, but the guy who did all that music, his name is Nick Carter. And you're right. I can also hear that as well. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, man. Sorry, I got so sidetracked. So more or less, Rita is talking about all the bad shit that she wants to do while Tommy is trying to stop her. But Goldar and Scorpina keep getting in the way. And at the very end of then what is the third page, again, we're talking about great layout and composition of Rita's face, but now she has the stone in her magic scepter. And it says, yes, that's it. In the faucets of stone, I could see everything. So it's kind of doing what we're, as an audience, in my opinion, getting very used to of a multiversal theme. Like, we're going to go to a different Angel Grove, and that's exactly what happens.
And that's kind of the way that they have to go about doing these, because you can't ever say, well, Godzilla's always been in the Power Rangers world, because they would have fought him by now for sure. It's a giant monster. They're causing all this wreckage up in the surface. Godzilla would have come up like, what the fuck is going on up here, and fought the Rangers. But here, this is a way to do it, and this is a way to get Tommy involved in there. He gets caught up in it, and they explain it perfectly. We'll get to it, but it's a really good setup.
Done very beautifully. The next page there is full splash of like Rita doing magic stuff. Well, not full splash. The bottom has a little bit. Again, I don't know what his style is in that regard, but it's cool on this page. It's really very much their own, which is hard to do anymore, in my opinion, but beautiful. They get zapped to this alternate Angel Grove in which monsters do exist. And we see Godzilla fighting who, sir?
I initially thought that it was almost like a Power Rangers monster, but that's one that is, I've seen it in Godzilla. I don't know its name though, but he's fought him before. It's like it's not someone that has caused him a lot of, it's just like, okay, he beat the guy. Like, you know, it's not someone huge, but I don't know the name. No.
Oh, okay. Just really quick, I went a little too far. So we are explained by Rita. Yes, I brought us to a world where the Power Rangers never came to be. Our greatest enemies do not exist in this reality. The world is completely defenseless against our monsters. But then, yes, we see these two other giant monsters, and even like Goldar and Scorpion are like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, and I just looked it up. It was Megalon is the monster that Godzilla's fighting, and it appeared in a team up type of movie where Jet Jaguar showed up and then Gigan showed up, Megalon. So it wasn't like a solo villain. The villains had to team up to fight Godzilla and the Jet Jaguar.
Okay. See, this is why I'm so happy we're doing this together, because not only that, I was a little curious on who that was going on, but as we continue, we kind of just have Rita standing there that's like, yeah, monsters are happening, and now look, you turn the page and there's a giant spacecraft, alien visitors, observers, spectators from another world. We see Godzilla bitch slapping the hell out of that guy, and then they're getting beamed up onto this UFO, and that's where I'm going to have you go, man. Like, what's going on here?
So this is where Rita initially, obviously there's conflict between the villains that we're getting in the story, but these are aliens that are tied in closely to Ghidorah. We're going to get Ghidorah in the story. There's no way that the Power Rangers don't team up with Godzilla to fight Ghidorah at some point. That's the biggest villain. You already have the aliens in here that are trying to take over Earth. And I don't know if in this lore, Godzilla has fought Ghidorah yet, because that's one thing they can rewrite. It's its own little story. It's its own universe. They can say, and here's our monster, Ghidorah. It might be the first time that he fights him. I don't know. So that could be the route that they take. But that's where initially, at least, Rita fights these other aliens, and then they kind of find out that they have a bit of a mutual interest. And Rita's learning about this world and learning that it has its own protector that are not the Power Rangers. So still an obstacle for Rita, something that she has to defeat or conquer to rule the Earth.
I love, too, the little quip as they fight. She's like, all right, now take me to your leader. Just super alien. Like, it's kind of in turn its own camp, which reminds me a little bit of Godzilla, because sometimes they got a little.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, too, when you look at these outfits. We do have the first then shot of the rest of the Rangers, all looking not anything like their counterparts on the TV. I'm wondering if that has to be like a image use right or something, if I had to guess.
I would think so too. I don't know what kind of contract they did sign so that they didn't have to look exactly like, they couldn't have their images used. Maybe they did get a really good contract, and maybe that's why they're like, all right, well, let's not make Jason David Frank look like him. And even in the comics that were based on the original season, when they drew these characters, it's like, all right, well, you know who they are, but they don't look exactly like the actors. So that could be, although in the past they've done photo variants, so I'd be curious to see what kind of payout that is. It might just be Freddie Williams kind of stylizing the characters to look like what he wants them to look like. When he drew Batman, he drew like an Arkham style beefy Batman, not like the comic book one. So I don't know. I'm leaning more towards Freddie Williams just kind of messing around.
It is cute though. They put their names on them just in case, all color coded, just in case. So we're all very good on who's who. The Zord on here is probably the most bitchin' Zordon I've seen in almost any interpretation. Like, it seems almost as if energy is flowing through and like every now and then like making a shadow to create his face, more so than just the standard head floating in a tube. It's pretty cool. That has to all just go to credit to the colorist, because it's obscure. It's weird, but I like it a lot.
And that's another thing. If you've read some of the older comics too, and they always mess around with how he looks. Like sometimes they'll have him with no pupils. Like they'll really make him look super cybernetic in a way. So they can take their liberties with him too.
Yeah. But at the same time, can still only hear David Felding in my head as I read, Alpha 5. We must not jump to conclusions.
Of course.
Our primary objective, you know what I mean? I could still hear the guy. And he tells the other 5, like, bro, not Jason, Tommy's in trouble. I was about to say Jason David Frank, but that's that guy. They're in trouble. We zoom back to these spacemen who are like, these are the Ghidorah guys who are explaining they just want Earth, but Godzilla keeps stopping them, so they keep making monsters to take down Godzilla. And Rita's like, bro, making monsters is what the fuck I do. Which, again, as you were talking about, like, oh, this all kind of makes sense in a very strange way, but it's all making sense of why these characters would come to meet.
I'd be curious to see, and we're probably going to find out, who's better at creating monsters, because are Rita's power level monsters on that same plane as Godzilla's, in that world? Because the Power Rangers are able to defeat Rita's monsters every week. But as we find out, Godzilla is like incredibly strong in this issue.
I like that. Yeah. And we're going to get to that right now. So like Tommy wakes up out of nowhere and I don't understand it. But again, it's comics. We're going to let it happen. It's crazy. Like, I don't understand how the Dragon Zord gets to this different universe, or even, maybe it was just always there. Because just because this group of Power Rangers didn't come to be doesn't mean that the original person who put the Dragon Zord there didn't put it there. You know what I mean? This could be its first time ever being awakened, because Tommy still does have the flute.
Yeah, I had that exact same question too. I chalked it up to either the flute is magic and anything tied into the flute also came with it. So maybe the Dragon Zord would have also been materialized in that world. But I think yours makes more sense of there hasn't been or the Green Ranger that is alive in that universe is dead or never awoken that Dragon Zord. So he's able to control it as well. There's a couple different ways you can go about it. But I had the exact same question. I'm like, what? how's that? How'd he show up?
Yeah, he just was sent through the grid as well because they're all in the grid. Yeah, it didn't make sense until that. But then to your point of going back of like, why didn't anybody find it there before? Godzilla's swimming around the fucking ocean all the time. You would have thought that he'd run into a giant lizard robot just sitting at the bottom of the sea and go, hey, the fuck's this? But they don't. He calls them. They come up and they get into a pretty good fight. One that I thought was going to last maybe a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, honestly, spoiler alert, guys, the Dragon Zord gets its ass kicked.
Like crazy.
It gets one or two shots in. But the thing that we discover, and back to what you were saying about is Rita going to be able to make something to stand up to Godzilla, is that she tries to do magic on it. And she's like, oh, no, we can't. I resist my magic. And the alien guy's like, as I said, these monsters, especially Godzilla, are all but impossible to control. So I think that's going to come back somewhere to bite her in the ass.
Yeah, they're going to create something probably with Mecha Ghidorah, and she's not going to be able to control it. And then I bet you either Godzilla is going to have to fuse somehow with the Megazord. Like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Oh, Daniel.
Armor on him or something.
You just made my nerdness go to an 11 to the point where I went, pah, like that would be so cool. Like an organic piece to a Megazord that they're going to build. Holy shit, I hope that's true. Oh, man, very good. As we turn the page, we get Tommy trying just at least one or two things to keep his buddy alive, and we get the iconic shot of the Dragon Zord's fingers becoming the missiles. And once again, of just almost... I can't help but hear the do like the sound effects that they played on every episode. And for a second, it looks like that might help. That might actually do something. But Godzilla is just too damn strong, man. And I love the way he's drawn. Once again, to kind of go back and gush a little bit over Freddy. He's got this scene or this stance where he's looking over him and his hands just kind of coming out his side like. It's a little humanoid. I like the way he did Godzilla here. It's a little less lizard in
he's
at
got
least
a lot
this
of
shot.
expression, yeah. Especially,
right?
Who's this motherfucker? Like he's really upset at seeing this other dragon. He's like, all right, well, I'll kick your ass too.
And then too, if you look at the long panel on that and get close up on that face, it's almost like back to the cat face.
Oh, right, yeah.
I love that. I love the way he looks in this. And it's just, there's not a lot of dialogue going on, so your eyes kind of can move quickly. But really, if you take the time and look at what he's doing, just in terms of the swipes and making your eye float around this page, it's it's done great and ends in what I think is almost a horrifying way. Of at the very bottom, we have Tommy going, some sort of power buildup. I need to get the Dragonzord out of here before. And in that panel, is his visor cracked and you can see his eye, or do you think they're just letting us see through it for dramatic effect?
I think they're just letting us see through it because it didn't look like he himself was damaged when he got transported. Now, if he were inside the Dragonzord, I think like, okay, yeah, maybe his visor's damaged, but I think, yeah, it's for effect just to see how shocked Tommy is to see the Dragonzord get defeated in this way, just manhandled.
Yeah, so quickly, because I wasn't sure if somehow as the Dragonzord was getting his ass kicked, if it was also like, we've heard so many times through the grid that they're connected. I wasn't sure if like it was something like that, but I like your way better, especially when we go to the next page there. We do get another shot of the eye, but I don't see anything broken. It just looks like a visor.
Mm-hmm.
But right after the page I was talking about with the eye, we get a full splash of Godzilla just Godzillaing the shit out of this dude. It looks really good. The only thing I don't like is the Dragonzord's hand just looks a little too real. It doesn't look like a robot anymore.
Gotcha.
Is that too nitpicky?
It's going to happen, especially as big a Power Ranger fan as you are. You know that it's a robot hand. It can't look too humanoid or alive for sure. So there's going to be
zoom up on them. Yeah, exactly. But then again, I'm super nitpicky because I don't know. I like to look at how long does it take you to read a comic sometimes,
I usually do one quick reread or just straight up, and then if I really like the comic, then I'll go back and study the artwork a lot more. So that's one thing that I don't know, maybe it takes me 7 minutes to read one if it's depending on the writer, because some writers like to really throw some dialogue in there, but this one, like Freddie Williams, you can just breeze through this comic. It's a lot of action.
Very true. It culminates to then, Tommy saying, no way, that blast, the Dragonzord's never been hit that hard before. And it's true. He's really just got his ass rocked to the point now we have Godzilla lift him and hold him over his head in what kind of reminds me of a little bit of Bane and Batman action.
I got that exact same thought. I'm like, he's gonna break the Dragonzord.
My man, see, that's why we're friends, because that's what I thought was gonna happen. Immediately, I thought the next page was gonna be him either putting him over his knee, which I really wanted, or maybe just a flat out tearing in half.
Right.
But instead, we get Tommy. We're zoomed in on his face, the same effect that we just talked about of the visor being transparent for a second, so we get a full eye. It's shocked, open, like could not open anymore. And, Tommy, it can't be. That monster thrashed the Dragonzord, and I don't have any backup. And then in the bottom right, as comics like to do, we get a not so fast Tommy. And since it's wrapped in red, we know it's probably the Red Ranger, which it is. It's Jason. And, it took Zordon a bit to track you down, but we're here. And just like and just in the nick of time, like it looks from. And then they all kind of say their own thing. And, it's time. I say it's time to bring some dinosaur power, and then we get a to be continued.
And that's when they're going to be able to, I'm assuming, have a more even fight with Godzilla, because I guess if they had made that fight closer between the Dragonzord and Godzilla, then it'd be like, okay, well, the Megazord's easily going to defeat Godzilla. So if they show Godzilla just strongly overpowering the Dragonzord, then you as a reader can say, okay, well, maybe the Dragonzord now, or the Megazord will be able to combine with the Dragonzord or something and be able to fight Godzilla and probably beat him. I would not be surprised if we saw a defeated Godzilla in the next issue.
Yeah, or at least, kind of what they did in Kong vs. Godzilla, where very much so Godzilla did kick the crap out of Kong, and Kong had to take a breather. Came back to fight Mecha Godzilla, but I would enjoy that too if they're like, all right, they put him down, and then they realized, oh shit, there's Ghidorah, you were saying, and now all of a sudden he just needs a breather while they get it. But what I really hope for too is, yes, we get the Megazord, because how can you not? Then we can go on and add the Dragonzord on top of that. I think that's then like the Ultrazord, maybe. But if you bring in even one more, Titanus comes in, you get the Ultra Megazord, I believe, and that'd be cool. So like that's the one where it's the Megazord and the green guy's on top of them, and then they jump in the Brachiosaurus.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fucking Zord.
Like a finishing blast, basically, right?
Yes, absolutely. And as a kid, I never noticed, but when you watch now, dude, they just film the toys, when you watch some of the old ones, they had at least giant models, more detailed models that they would make the Megazord. But when they got to Titanus and stuff, you can literally just tell it's a toy and somebody put the camera down low to look at. It's pretty funny.
So it's literally the toy that they released? It's not even
Yeah.
like a special one just for the show?
Nope.
That's
I
hilarious.
shit you not, dude. Yep.
Well, on one hand, you can faithfully recreate the scenes exactly like they were in the show if you have the toys.
Absolutely. And going back to the collecting, that would be cool. That would be one. That's a weird deep cut that they didn't make a lot of them. So to collect the Titanus would be awesome. But to see it in this comic, I think we can, because if we do go by the assumption that they've been there since prehistoric times, they just had nobody to call them because the Power Rangers never came to be. We could get all of them.
That's true.
Now,
That's true.
Do you get here? So at the very end, we get the next issue. All the Rangers are kind of on the ground. It looks like they got their ass kicked again. We get a very, once again, cat-like Godzilla, in my opinion, kind of looking down on them. I love this design. We get Rita in the back, but who is this person with their back, with their foot on Tommy's back? Do you know? Is that like a main character or just another alien person?
You're talking about for the second issue? For the
Yes.
preview of the second one?
Yeah.
So that is another one of the aliens from that she had teamed up with, but I was curious if that was Scorpina even, like maybe if she took on, that's not Scorpina, right? Is that, does she have the same hairstyle?
Ooh, that's a good call. So let's go back and see a picture of her. I mean, it could be.
Because I know Freddy, every time they do the crossovers, at some point they like to have, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers crossover, they had them switch costumes, so they like to do that a lot. So I wouldn't, that's why I was curious if it was one of the Power Rangers villains at least. But no, it does look like one of the aliens from the spaceship. Although from what I remember in the movies, they were all male. So that's interesting. That's why I had that question.
Huh. I guess we'll just have to find out, dude. I would like to do this with you as it comes out, because this was a fuck ton of fun, man.
Yeah, I guess. So it also looks like either she's controlling Godzilla also, or Godzilla is going to be kicking her ass here in a minute.
Yes, yeah, he's either coming up to snatch her, but she's got some magic going that's also kind of coming from his back.
Yeah, that's true.
But we did just see, that it didn't matter. But all the Power Rangers, it didn't really seem like the other 5 showing up seems to matter. At least not yet, because they all look pretty laid the fuck out.
It'd be another cool way to do it too. The way she was able to corrupt the Green Ranger, because she made in the original lore, she made the stone specifically as an evil ranger, right? To fight them.
Yeah, she somehow, I don't know if it's ever brought up how she got the 6th power coin, but she did get it and then used it for evil in tangent with an evil candle.
Right, the one that would burn, and then when it burned out, then his powers were gone. So I'm curious if she does something similar with this Godzilla. I don't know if she's able to make a power coin to control him specifically, kind of like a throwback to Tommy as well. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
I'm just really now hoping, because I still can't get the idea out of my head of like them somehow attaching their Zords onto Godzilla.
Fuck yeah. Come on.
That sounds so good.
Zordon's got to have
do
something.
Well, so like I said, this was really, really fun. I hope that we could do this as they keep coming out. How many issues did you say? They're doing 4, right?
4 more, so it should be 5 total.
More. Nice. Oh, I like that. I like a little series. They wrap it up, and then I'm sure they'll put it all into one big book.
Yes, and that's how I like series that I really like or that I want to reread. I will also collect it as a trade paperback just so I can have it at access all the time, not have to dig up every issue and read them. So this is going to be one that I get, just like he did Batman Power Ranger or Batman TMNT before, Freddie Williams, and those I collected in trade, and now I've got to do the same with this one. And I hope there's a sequel if it sells well enough. If you like Godzilla or Power Rangers and you like this first issue, go out and buy the single issues because that tells them that you want more of it.
And if you can too, yeah, get each of them, because once again, the more that you speak with your dollars, the more people tend to listen. And I could take more Power Rangers, more Mighty Morphin specifically, Power Rangers. The more they give it to us, the more I'm going to spend money on it, much to my wife's chagrin.
And do what Nick did of subscribe to it, because if you leave it up to, well, I'll just get them as I'll keep a track of when they release and I'll go on day one. And guess what? Issue 2 are a lot less printed than issue 1. Issue 3 is a lot less printed than issue 2 because as the series goes on, people fall off of it. Some people only collect the number 1s. So don't risk not getting that issue and missing one. And if you can settle for second or third prints, great. I'm sure those are coming, but otherwise just sub to it. Just have them pull them aside for you, go in and pick them up. Pick up what you ask them to put aside for you, and they'll do the rest for you. So I would strongly recommend doing what Nick did. If you intend on picking them all up, just subscribe to it.
I couldn't have said it better myself because it helps everybody. It helps the store. It helps you. It helps Power Rangers. It helps Godzilla. Just do it. Just sub. And while you're at it, if you're subscribing to things, to subscribe to my podcast would be great. To subscribe to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast would be great. Go ahead and tell them where they can find that.
Oh, thanks, Nick. I appreciate that. You can head on over to thereasonsimbroke.com and you will find a link to everywhere you can find us and a link to everywhere you can follow us.
Awesome, man. With that go, we are heading on out of this episode. Another great one, of course, the great co-host that I have here, Daniel. You've been here since the very beginning, since even before this podcast. We've known each other. We've talked to each other. You've helped feed my dreams. You've been there for me. I really always appreciate it. Really, truly, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, Nick, and I appreciate you being on The Reasons I'm Broke as well. That's really awesome. One of your buddies, Parker, I don't know if he goes by that name as far as how you know him, but he joined our Discord and he's like, heard you on this podcast, so I'm on the Discord here. I'm a friend of Nick's, or I've known him for so long, so just wanted to give a quick shout out to Parker as well, who I know listens to Bud's Bros.
My man, yes, Parker is. He's been on here, and eventually he will come back. We've been working on it. Like I said, the schedule's been crazy, but we're going to get Parker back on here to talk some kung fu movies or something.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. With that, though, I thank everybody out there for all the support always. If you want to leave a comment, subscribe, do any of those fun internet things, that'd be great. But at the very least, I can always ask for, if you could, a little bit of word of mouth. Because if you have a friend who likes Buds, Bros, or superheroes, have I got a show for them? My name has been Nick James, been joined by the ever awesome Daniel. Thanks, guys, so much. And Buds, Bros, and superheroes are out of here.